This ride could have been a disaster. A few years ago it would have been. But today it was wonderful because I'm not the same rider I was a few years ago. Let me explain. I started my ride of the Louisville, Kentucky waterfront on the Indiana side of the Ohio River. I rode over the Big Four Bridge to get to the Kentucky side. I'll just let the video from my ride play out as I talk. I'll throw in relevant photos or video where appropriate, but mostly I'll just let it roll. I'm discussing examples of practical benefits I've found by learning to think better. If you're interested in the topic of thinking better, this will be of interest to you. But this is not a dissertation on how you should think. I'm just sharing my experience, strength, and hope as I continue to work to improve my thinking and conduct. Some folks already have the traits I've worked to develop, although even they could improve their lives by using the tools I describe here. I said I'm not the same rider I was a few years ago. In a broader sense, I'm not the same person I was a few years ago. I've been deliberate and intentional in my change. One of the tools I've used has been cognitive behavioral therapy, or CBT. I'll throw a link regarding CBT into the description, but here's the summary. Cognitive behavioral therapy trains you to challenge the validity of your thoughts and the appropriateness of your behaviors. A lot of what we think and do is correct, but a lot of it is not. CBT helps us spot the errors and correct them, which improves the quality of life for us and for everyone around us. This is just my story. I'm not a therapist. If you're really struggling with mental health issues, see a professional. You may well gain insights from watching this video, but it is not a substitute for receiving professional care. CBT has been part of my self-improvement strategy for some time, but I spent a couple of months really working it earlier this year. As a result, I automatically employ the tools of CBT in my daily life, although with varying effectiveness. I applied CBT on this ride. There were 5 incidents that came up, and any one of them could have ruined my ride in the past. Because I responded differently due to my work with CBT, these incidents didn't ruin my ride, they enriched it. Let's examine those 5 incidents. Number 1. I was maybe a mile or two into my ride when a woman launched from a lawn chair, yelling, arms flailing, directing her delirium at me. I'm not keen on being accosted when I ride, and the old rich would have been put off by her conduct. But I looked beyond her and saw barricades. Apparently there was a private event being held later in the day, and what would normally be public space was not open to the public on this day. I noticed she was wearing a cap with "security" printed on it. I figured, she's just doing her job. And her security training conditioned her to come off forcefully to take control of the situation from the beginning. No big deal. I also didn't take it personally. I slowed down and let her tell me with no uncertainty that the area I was riding toward was closed, off limits. I said, no worries, but I'd like to get back down to ride along the river, and I'm not from around here. Can you tell me the best way to get back to the bike path? She immediately softened a little and gave me directions. I honestly don't know downtown Louisville that well, and I had to ask for a bit of clarification, which she happily provided. I followed her instructions and easily found my way back to the bike path. On my return later in the day, I made a point of stopping to see her. This time some guy was also there. He leaped out of his chair and started to exhibit the same histrionics she had shown earlier. She said something to him and he walked off. As I rode up, she said, "Did you find your way?" I told her I had indeed found my way downriver and back again thanks to her instructions. I also told her that much as I enjoyed the entire ride, the high point had been my opportunity to meet and talk with her. She was so happy, I was so happy. We high-fived and I said, "God bless you," as I rode away. Number 2, homeless. Lots of homeless. Evidence of the homeless population everywhere, including this homeless camp under the interstate. I could have videoed the homeless at length, but I'd resent someone riding past with a GoPro and videoing me where I live, and I figured they likely have similar sensibilities. The presence of the homeless could have spoiled my ride. It's heartbreaking to witness, and difficult to not paint the entire riding experience with the despair of seeing countless homeless persons along the way. But CBT cautions us against catastrophizing, which is assuming the presence of a difficult or challenging situation must result in the worst possible outcome, in this case, the ruination of my ride. I can accept the presence of unpleasantness and still have a good ride. I find that skill put to use on nearly every ride, because nearly every ride has at least one unappealing aspect. I can also compartmentalize my cognition. There is a time and place for me to consider the plight of the homeless, but this ride is neither the right time nor the right place. By the way, I'm fully aware of the move to shift from the term homeless to the term unhoused. I don't buy it and would be happy to discuss the matter on our next ride together. Number 3. The road to Shippingport Island at McAlpin Lock and Dam was closed. Kind of a bummer. When I rode here with my buddy Charles Schindler in January 2015, the road was open. It provided a great vantage point from which to see the locks, and the bit of riding we did on the island was a high point that day. But CBT teaches us to dwell in the now. The road was open in 2015, but today it's closed. Get over it and get back to enjoying the ride that's available to you right now. Number 4. A mechanical. While walking the bike around the lock and dam area, I heard something rubbing on my bike. A quick inspection revealed that a zip tie had broken, and my rear brake cable was now rubbing on the tire. It wasn't an imminent hazard, but could have created a real problem by the time I rode back to the start. I wandered around and even tried a door on what appeared to be a shop building. I was hoping to find someone who could give me a replacement zip tie. No luck. I looked in my seat bag and found an emergency kit that had been given to me by Alex Schmidlap when we both worked at Planet Fitness. He'd drawn my name for a gift exchange and had given me a couple of these, one of which I put with this bike. I lopped off a piece of paracord and had the brake cable held in place in just a couple of minutes. CBT teaches me it's unreasonable to expect I'll never have a mechanical issue on a ride, especially given the hundreds of rides I do in an average year. So rather than succumb to the frustration of a minor mechanical, I found myself grateful to have discovered it while it was still minor, grateful to have the resources to fix the issue, and grateful to have a friend at work who knew me well enough to buy a gift that actually fit my lifestyle and would come in handy on this day. Number 5. My blasted Garmin sat-nav unit. In road mode, but not in mountain bike mode, it has a feature that alerts someone I specify in the event of an event, like a crash, or being struck by a vehicle. But the thing is like the most fretful wife imaginable. Every time I stopped, it interpreted my braking action as a panic stop and set off the alarm.
Oh good God, how do I shut that piece of off?
If I rested the bike on its side. You get the idea. It gives you 20 or 30 seconds to cancel the alert, but that requires fishing out my phone and hitting cancel from within the app. After the 4th or 5th such interruption, I figured I could spend several minutes, several times, throughout the rest of the day, hitting cancel, or I could pause right then and shut off the alert mode. I scrolled through the menu, found the feature, and toggled it off. CBT told me it's less frustrating to acknowledge and deal with a problem than to ignore it and hope it goes away, which these types of problems never do. It also taught me I'm blessed to have someone to alert. I'm guessing none of the homeless persons I saw had a $1,500 bike with a $500 sat-nav unit with a loving spouse's cell phone number programmed in to text in the event of an emergency. If I see my relative affluence as an inconvenience, it's time to reshape my thinking. Before we get to the bonus point, let me thank those supporting my efforts. You can do so on a monthly basis through Patreon or with a one-time contribution through PayPal. Links are in the description. Oh, and I'm available to create videos for your business or group. Message me for more information. Okay, bonus item number 6. The stench. I was riding in an urban area with urban garbage, bounded on one side by a river, a sleepy river now in late summer, a river where detritus gathered in the eddies at the edges so it could all rot together in unison. This is separate from the first 5 because it involves not only CBT, but also the idea of objective versus subjective reality. The objective reality is that the river is full of decaying stuff. That reality would exist if no one were there to perceive it. The subjective reality is that it stinks. That is true only because I'm here and my sense of smell is intact. I cannot change objective reality, but I can change subjective reality. So rather than find the odor distasteful, I saw it as wondrous. It was evidence of the biological process of decomposition. Imagine our world if every tree that ever fell laid forever on the forest floor, every deer struck by a motor vehicle stayed on the shoulder of the road, Every pile of fecal matter created a new layer on top of millennia of feces. Decomposition is a miraculous and necessary part of life, and I had the chance to ride through a corridor redolent with the evidence of this process. As for the trash from people, it's offensive, yes, but the Ohio River Valley Basin is home to nearly 25 million people. Some trash is bound to show up in the water. This is not to say that every Mountain Dew bottle that falls in the water in Pittsburgh will make it to Louisville, but a lot of upstream trash will. And I refuse to engage in labeling. People are not generally slobs or trashy or thoughtless or inconsiderate. I believe the bulk of the trash in the water is there by accident, not by indifference, and certainly not by deliberate action. Thanks to CBT, I had a good ride. Also thanks to CBT, I kept the whole day in perspective. It was a nice ride, but even the best ride is still just a ride. It does not compare well with things I value more highly. Sharing in another's joy, comforting someone in the throes of grief, sponsoring someone in their journey from addiction back to life. Again, I'm not a therapist. If you need one, find one. You can and should live happily most of the time. If you stayed with me this long, I'm impressed, shocked even. We're not socially conditioned to listen to some putz prattle on about healthy thinking, but you've done it. Good on you. If you have examples of how you've managed your thinking to create a better life, put that in the comments. This video shares my practical application of CBT. If you'd like to see a video dealing specifically with cognitive behavioral therapy as its own topic, put that in the comments too. What could have been a disappointing ride turned out to be a great ride because I chose to make it so, and because I had the cognitive tools to make that happen. I hope you got value from what I shared. I'm Rich Reese, and I'll see you out there.